She was called a saint by some, and criticized by others. A woman who walked the streets of Calcutta, cradling the dying in her arms, yet wrestled with doubts so deep they haunted her soul. To millions, she was the living face of compassion. To critics, she was a symbol of contradictions. This is the story of Mother Teresa, more than a saint, more than a symbol, a woman whose life of service continues to challenge the world today. Ng's Bojaxiu, later known to the world as Mother Teresa, was born on August 26, 1910, in the city of Skopje, then part of the Ottoman Empire. Her family was Albanian, deeply rooted in Catholic faith and traditions. Her father, Nikola, was a businessman involved in politics and community service, while her mother, Drana, was a figure of kindness who often cared for neighbors in need. These early lessons in faith and compassion would shape Ng's life forever. At the age of 8, tragedy struck when her father died suddenly, leaving the family in financial hardship. Her mother carried the family through those difficult times, raising her children with strength, discipline, and unwavering faith. From her earliest years, Ng's was drawn to the idea of serving others. She attended church regularly and became active in her parish. At just 12 years old, she felt the first stirrings of a calling to religious life. In 1928, at only 18, she left her home to join the Sisters of Loreto in Ireland, a missionary order devoted to education. This decision came at a great personal cost. She would never again see her mother or sister. After her training, she was sent to India, where she began teaching at St. Mary's High School in Calcutta. For nearly 2 decades, she taught young girls, earning respect as both a teacher and principal. But outside the school walls, poverty was everywhere. The streets of Calcutta were filled with hunger, sickness, and death. For Ng's, now Sister Teresa, the contrast between the classroom and the suffering outside became impossible to ignore. She began to sense that her purpose lay beyond education, in the very heart of human suffering itself. In 1946, while traveling on a train to Darjeeling for a retreat, Sister Teresa experienced what she described as a call within a call. She felt God urging her to leave the convent and dedicate herself fully to serving the poorest of the poor. This moment changed the course of her life. She petitioned church authorities for permission, and in 1948, she stepped into the slums of Calcutta, leaving behind her comfortable life in the convent. Clad in a simple white cotton sari with blue borders, the attire that would become her lifelong symbol, she began her mission. She first worked in the poorest neighborhoods, opening a school for slum children and tending to the sick who had no one to care for them. She begged for food, medicine, and supplies, but slowly gained support as locals saw her dedication. In 1950, with the blessing of the Vatican, she founded the Missionaries of Charity, a religious congregation committed to serving the destitute, the abandoned, and the dying. The congregation started with just 13 members, but it quickly grew. Her mission was clear: to give dignity to those society had rejected. She opened Nirmal Hriday, the home for the dying, where the terminally ill could die with dignity, loved and cared for, rather than abandoned on the streets. Her work extended to orphanages, leper colonies, and shelters for the homeless. Her belief was simple: not all of us can do great things. But we can do small things with great love. For the people she served, she became a beacon of hope, a woman who turned compassion into action. For Teresa, the slums of Calcutta were not a place of despair but of divine calling, a place where she found God in the faces of the suffering. By the 1960s and 70s, Mother Teresa's work began attracting global attention. The Missionaries of Charity expanded across India and eventually around the world. Homes for the dying, orphanages, and clinics for leprosy patients appeared in cities across Asia, Africa, Latin America, and even in developed nations. The small congregation of 13 sisters grew into thousands, working in more than 100 countries. Her radical approach to compassion, lifting the dying from the streets, holding their hands, and giving them dignity in their final moments, captured the imagination of the world. Journalists and filmmakers documented her work, bringing her story to millions. In 1979, she received the Nobel Peace Prize for her service to humanity. When asked how the prize money should be used, she famously responded, "I am unworthy. But I accept it in the name of the poor." She requested that the funds be given entirely to the poor and suffering. Leaders and celebrities sought her presence. Presidents, popes, and royalty praised her dedication. For many, she became the very image of compassion, a living saint in the modern world. Her public image was marked by humility, as she never sought personal glory but used her fame to shine a light on the plight of the marginalized. But alongside admiration, she also became a figure of debate. Some praised her as a divine instrument, while others questioned the scale and impact of her mission. Still, by the 1980s, Mother Teresa had become one of the most recognizable figures on the planet. To millions, she embodied unconditional love, a reminder that one person could indeed change the world. For all her acclaim, Mother Teresa was not without criticism. As her fame grew, so too did scrutiny. Critics argued that the homes she established often lacked proper medical facilities and that patients received little more than basic care. Some accused her of glorifying suffering rather than addressing its root causes. Others criticized her strict opposition to abortion and contraception, arguing that her moral stances ignored the complexities of poverty. Writers like Christopher Hitchens questioned whether her work truly alleviated suffering or simply offered temporary relief. These criticisms painted a more complicated picture of a woman who, while deeply committed to service, held views that clashed with modern perspectives on health and human rights. But perhaps the most surprising revelation came after her death, when her private letters were published. In them, she confessed to decades of spiritual darkness, admitting that she often felt abandoned by God. She wrote of doubt, emptiness, and a painful silence in her prayers. For many, these confessions humanized her. Behind the image of a saint was a woman who wrestled with faith, loneliness, and despair, yet still pressed forward in serving others. Her struggles highlighted a truth often hidden behind her public persona. Mother Teresa was not a flawless icon but a profoundly human figure. She carried her doubts silently while continuing to live out her calling. To some, this made her even greater, proof that sainthood is not perfection but perseverance in the face of struggle. To others, it added complexity, showing that her legacy was not a simple story of holiness, but of humanity, faith, and contradiction. Mother Teresa passed away on September 5, 1997, in Calcutta, the city that had become her home and mission. Her death was mourned across the globe, with tributes pouring in from leaders, religious figures, and ordinary people whose lives she had touched. Thousands attended her funeral, and millions watched as the world said goodbye to the woman they called a saint. In 2016, she was canonized by the Catholic Church as Saint Teresa of Calcutta, yet her impact had long transcended religious boundaries. For the poor and the forgotten, she was a mother. For admirers around the world, she was a symbol of compassion in action. For critics, she was a reminder that even the greatest figures are not without flaws. Today, the Missionaries of Charity continue her work in over 130 countries, caring for the sick, the dying, the abandoned, and the destitute. Whether one views her as a saint, a humanitarian, or a controversial figure, there is no denying her extraordinary influence. Mother Teresa's life challenges us to reconsider what it means to live with purpose. She was more than a saintly figure frozen in stained glass. She was a woman of contradictions, struggles, and relentless service. She showed the world that greatness lies not in wealth or power but in the simple act of loving those most forgotten. Her legacy is not perfection but compassion. And in a world still divided by inequality and indifference, the life of Mother Teresa remains both an inspiration and a challenge, a reminder that one person's love can ripple across the globe. Mother Teresa's life reminds us that compassion is not perfection, but a choice to love, even when it's difficult. If this story inspired you, don't let it end here. Like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories of the legends who shaped our world. Together, let's keep their legacies alive, and let their lessons guide us.